Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. My name is Bernadette Desir, and I'm your host. And joining me today is special guest Analee. How are you?
Oh, fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I
Yeah.
feel very excited, very thrilled. And for me, it's a blessing. It's a true honor to be here today.
Yes, happy to have you. I love your name, by the way. It's
Oh,
very
well, thank you.
beautiful. You're welcome. Analee, do you mind telling us where in the world are you tuning in from?
Well, I'm actually in Dallas,
Nice.
Dallas, Texas. Yes.
Nice. I've been to Texas. It's too hot for me. I couldn't do it. It's too hot. It's
Yeah.
nice though. It's really nice. Yeah. Um,
Well,
yeah, so Annalie, you're an author. My first question for you is, what inspired you to become an author?
it's a very interesting question, actually. I was not planning on becoming an author, to be quite honest with you. It was
Mm,
not something that I had planned. And I
mm,
actually have here my book, A Legacy of Love, which I actually ended up writing in both languages, in English and Spanish. And I
mm.
actually even have a workbook as well in English and Spanish, and even a cookbook. It's a very fascinating story how all this came to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this happened, I would say, about 5 and so years ago
Mm-hmm.
through church. As we were approaching church and we're sitting there, the pastor where I used to attend back in the time when I was still single, and my husband and I were dating back then, had a message, a word for me. And he pulls us up and he says, I need that family that's sitting there. And we're a blended family. And my husband, the pastor goes through my husband, my kids, and he has a little word. Then he stops right where I'm at. And he says, let me share this with you. Um, God has this calling for you. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of people in general that will be set free through your story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, my story? I'm like, no, I was in the middle of working and changing careers. I actually have a background also in education. So I was changing careers from the educational background, the field, the system, to becoming an interpreter and translator. And I'm like, no, I'm working on this other dream that I have. So he was telling me, God has this in store. He knows where you've been. And there's a lot of people that need to hear your story. And it will allow a lot of people to understand that they're not the only ones that have been in a dark season. You definitely know where I'm coming from. You know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely understood, but I was not wanting to share. And it was not fun. It was just too much. And I was going to share my mother's past. I was going to share mine, and it was going to open too much of my past, of my grandparents, and what we had to go through. So somehow the pandemic hit. And, during that time, we were shut down. We were at home. We were not allowed to go out.
Mm-hmm.
So we were doing church at home. And again, the revelation, but now it became so direct that the other pastor was sharing, if all of you believers would be willing to come out of this baby pool and just out of these floaties and go into the ocean and share your story, a lot of people would know that there is a way. And a lot of these people would come to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew that it was not going to stop till I was willing to give in, to surrender. So that's when I just started writing. That's when this book started to come together. So I started writing and I was still having a hard time. So when I was writing, I started writing in Spanish. I started writing in my mother tongue. I was born here in the United States, but my parents are from Mexico. So I'm first generation born in the United States. So I'm like, I'm still having a hard time. I'm going to start writing it
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Spanish. So then my husband notices that. He says, why, what's going on? I'm like, I'm surrendering, but I'm still battling this. So I finished it in one language. Then I eventually did it in English. I did it in both languages. So
Mhm.
that's how the a book starts to come together.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. How would you say your personal life has influenced your writing, which you just shared with us, but take us a little deeper into that.
Well, it's definitely taken me to a season of a lot of healing. It
Mm,
allowed my mother and myself to be set free, to give us a voice, which we did not have a voice. And my book actually says, finding the courage to finally speak out. There's a lot of people out there that don't have a voice, and allowing my mother, which she already passed away in 1988. I was just a little girl. Finally, she has a voice. Finally, I have a voice by sharing and narrating this very painful story.
mm,
It allowed her and allowed me to be set free. And if there was an area where we were not fully healed, it brought a lot of healing and restoration through
yeah.
this story.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Would you be willing to take us through what happened with your mom, if that's not too
Yes,
much?
I lose my mother when I was going to be 15.
Okay.
And my mother was also an interpreter and translator. She worked for General Motors.
Mm,
And we used to travel. We got to travel at the time we were in Mexico.
mhm,
Um, she passed away due through complications of placenta previa back in 88. She was just 35 years old. There was not a lot of help. People were not well informed.
mhm,
So mainly people would have complications of bleeding.
mm,
So they would find out when it was really, there was not much to do. So I lose my mother, her organs start shutting down. She I was about to be 15. The doctors come out, they share with us, we're trying to save her life. It's very difficult. We don't know if she's going to make it. I was the oldest. I have a brother that's 5 years difference younger.
mm,
um, I remember what she would always tell me:
mm,
seek the Lord.
yeah.
And that was the first thing I did.
Mm,
I put myself on my knees, and I started asking and begging and pleading, asking for her life, asking for
mhm,
a miracle that never arrived.
mhm,
Um, all that night, she had cardiac arrest.
mm,
Because of not having enough blood. One of her cousins, when you're out of the country, uh, for you to get blood transfusion, normally it has to be a relative
mm. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That must have
that
been so
helps you.
hard. Yeah.
It was extremely difficult. It took a lifetime for me to eventually want to put this together in words.
Mm,
Um, I never wanted to talk about this. I actually never even took therapy
mm,
because back in that time, going through therapy, that meant that there was something wrong with you. Um, there was no really counseling. So for me, it was very hard. And for my brother, Jesse, to verbalize that, I
mhm,
became extremely quiet. I had to plan a funeral instead of planning a quinceañera. I
mm,
was about to be 15,
mhm.
and in the United States, it's your sweet 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the Hispanic culture and the Mexican culture is your quinceañera. Well, that's what we were planning.
Mhm,
Um, at the time, a quinceañera of your dress, you're about to be a teenager, a fun time. Well, no, I had to grow up, which I was extremely mature. I've always been very mature,
mhm,
uh, and have to plan a funeral. She never came back.
mhm,
We had already plans. We were had have to plan a funeral, but at the same time have to plan a newborn that was coming back, our baby brother. It was horrendous. I don't have the words. I will never have the words how to describe losing a mother that she was our mother, our father. My parents had previously been divorced. My
Mhm.
mother had, gotten married. Everything, had come to an end for our mother. But for us,
Mhm.
the worst was just starting. And when I say the worst was because my life and my brother Jesse's life was very normal, was
Mhm.
a very normal life where my mother's love was the love of her children, the love for her job. She loved the kitchen. She loved to cook and bake. She loved the neighbor. She loved the Lord. So I became very much that way. I
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that I carried, and still till now, her legacy.
Mhm.
So losing her, we end up living with our grandparents on my mom's side. And I share that in very detail of them being so abusive, so controlling. Um, Being the oldest, I end up going to high school. I didn't have a voice. I was not able to really speak much about my losing my mother.
Mhm.
So I end up keeping that to myself. I would cry in my room. I would cry as I would shower, but I was not able to share much of my pain. It was taking care of a baby brother, which my grandmother did, but I would help as much as I could. I would want to spend much time out of that vicious cycle of abuse.
Mhm.
They were very abusive, very controlling.
Mhm.
Just like my mother before myself, I end up in an arranged marriage, which you're going to say, wow, yes, because of my mother having assets. She had a life insurance, she had jewelry, she had other things that she leaves behind. And my grandfather, obviously, is on my mom's side. He wants to take control of that. And I was not willing for that to happen. So
Mhm.
they decide to marry me against my will. Um, that was a punishment, sending me, shipping me away out of the country to Mexico. And just like my mother, our personalities were very similar. We didn't, we would complain, but my grandfather was very strong in his personality. So it was very different. Even though I try to complain, back in the 90s, there was no uh, phone lines. What you would have in that time was, those phones that you have outside in the little phone booths that you would have to put coins.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we had back then. There was no phones where you would actually have a cell phone and, start calling and get someone to help you.
Mhm.
So they actually drove me to Mexico, and they married me against my will. So it was horrible. From there, I end up having a hard time becoming pregnant. I
Mhm.
lose my first child. I was 5 months along in the same hospital. That's where I'm like, wow, the same hospital where my mother started her deathbed. I was like, where was it? Was it that my mother was in that place? Was she over here? It was extremely difficult for a girl
Mhm.
to process that.
Mhm.
Um, it was very hard, and I was alone. My dad stayed in the United States. He was not much involved with us because he had remarried.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
and mainly the father role in our culture is not as much involved as the mothers are involved. And I think that happens very often in different cultures when they are divorced, that mainly the mother stays more involved in with the children than actually the fathers. So my grandparents leave me there. I eventually find my voice and eventually come back to the United States and
Mhm.
get a divorce, and again end up in another relationship of abuse,
Mhm.
not realizing that the only way you break that cycle is through therapy. That's when you finally break that cycle. You need to realize
Mhm.
that people that go through abusive relationships, whether it's family relationship, whether it's a partner or a husband, which I had, continue to find attract people, want it or not, like it or not, that are also that same pattern,
Mhm.
till you realize that you need to be your best version. And that's when things started changing. I also experienced being between life and death with my child, which I ended up in a big depression in the process of that, losing my child.
Mhm.
Uh, losing, also, I went through gallbladder complications. I went through so many things that I share in my book. Um, I really didn't want to live. Losing my child, that's when I really said, Lord, take me. If
Mhm.
I wouldn't have had the foundation of knowing and having faith in God, having faith, I don't think I would be here today.
Mhm.
And I thank my mother every single day,
Mhm.
um, because I know I wouldn't have made it. It
Mhm.
was just so many things that I had to overcome,
Mhm.
and I needed to share definitely my story. Was I willing to? Did I want to? No. Is it fun? No, but if I know that my story is going to help and empower other people, it's not about me. It's okay. It's about helping other people and letting them know that they're not the only ones that have gone through so many obstacles.
Mhm.
And maybe it's one obstacle that they've gone, or maybe they've gone through many more.
Mhm.
I don't know. But if my story could help them and could allow them to know that things will get better. And my story did not end in despair.
Mhm.
Um, my story ended up in a very different place. A lot of my years were taken away, yes, but now I've been able to fulfill what was taken away from me. But it did take a very long time. I'm
Mhm.
not going to deny that. But I thank the Lord that because of my character of always pushing and always being very positive and believing in a higher power, believing in God, and pushing away from negative influences, and most definitely going to therapy, definitely changed the course of my life.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And
Yeah.
yeah, right, your story is empowering people. And I feel very similar in my story as well, that I remove myself because there are people waiting to hear those stories to get out of the situations that they're in, to start their healing journey. And I honor you for sharing your story, for being so brave and authentic to what you do and how you do it. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Earlier on, you said you were between life and death. Would you call that a NDE, near death experience? If so, what was your experience like?
Well, I the going and about to lose I lose my child, and the doctor shared with me, it was actually previously that day I went into the hospital, and I thought he was a doctor, and he was just an assistant going uh, there, and he was going to the school. He was going to become a doctor, but he was not fully certified. He was not a full doctor, and he caused me to start bleeding. So eventually, after a couple of hours, I start bleeding, and I was already 5 months along. The doctor told me, he told us, um, your life is also on the line. Besides your child, um, being so far along in your pregnancy,
Mhm.
you might also not be able to make it. I'm very sorry, but your life is also in danger, and we need to let you know of that. And honestly, I just did not want to live, knowing that I had already lost my mother, and now I was definitely losing my child,
Mhm.
and it was just a matter of hours. I
Mhm.
didn't have a reason, I didn't have hope. And I really didn't want to move on. I didn't want to continue living. They never allowed me to take my child. I never got to see my child. I had to become really good friends with the nurse to have a little more information of him. And she said it was a boy. I don't know. I never got to see him, you see? So for me, that was one of the close death experiences. And the doctor actually explained that to me. He was very clear. And he said, and we're going to have to put you under because we're going to have to clean you inside, all your uterus, because if there's something remainder that could cause another infection, and you might not make it. Okay, we don't know how that's going to go. Then, besides that experience, the other one was I waited a whole year because I didn't want to have a surgery with my gallbladder. I had gallbladder complications before losing my child. And I didn't want to have surgery. So I went through all these different alternatives, trying to watch on diets, trying to do other options, and it didn't go well. So eventually I knew that I was going to have to go through surgery, but I had waited so long. So there was 3 gallstones that went out, and I started having the vial in my skin. When the vial in your skin is out, your skin starts turning yellow. My eyes were yellow. That is very dangerous because that meant that my organs could be poisoned. So the doctor shared with us, she's gone very far. She didn't want to have her surgery. We have a couple of hours, and we hope that she makes it, because if that vial spreads in her organs, we are going to have to extract her organs, wash them, clean them. He was very into detail, and it sounds grotesque, pretty bad, pretty nasty. But if we don't do that, and even though we do that, her life is on the line. Once again, my life was on the line.
Yeah.
So when I'm sharing this, how can I not believe that there is a higher power? How can I not believe that there is a God? There is no question that I know that there is a God, and that God was protecting me. And no, I don't emphasize, I'm very natural at sharing this. I share that in detail, how I was able to make it through. And as I was going through surgery, I did pray. I said, once again, my life is in your hands. If you want me to make it through, it's up to you. I'm very grateful that my mom taught me the right path. And I just want you to know that if this is my time, it is well. But he obviously still has me here. But yes, I faced life and death twice. Why? Because if he would have wanted me to leave, he would have taken me. But if he still has me here is for a purpose. And I think that God has a purpose and a direction for all of us. And he knows when our time comes and why.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I wanted to get clarification on one thing. Maybe viewers would be interested as well. Was it the untrained doctor that caused the baby you had to pass, or was there prior complications to have caused that?
Yes, it was actually the untrained. He was not a doctor that caused me to lose my child.
Oh, wow.
That's what we were told.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's what we were told by the other true doctor, that it was the doctor that was not a true doctor, that he was still a practitioner that was, still practicing. He was still going to medical school to become a doctor. But I would say that that's what we were told. But at the end of the day, who truly knows is God. And it was extremely sad to never have a full closure,
Mhm.
to not truly know what really happened that day, because I went believing that a doctor, a true doctor, was going to take care of me. And it turned out that that assistant that was not a doctor yet caused all this that could have been, you know,
Mhm.
stopped, that could have been, gone the very different route.
Mhm.
But now I just give it to God, and I need to, as anyone else, you need to move on, because
Mhm.
it will definitely be a torture for me if I stay there. It
Mhm.
was very painful for me. I stayed there for several years, living in the what if,
Yeah.
and I could have, in the what if, and it's not a healthy place to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know that what I was told was that it was the assistant that caused all this. That's
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
I just know.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking twice before I go see any doctors now. I mean, there's more training, but I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's very
Yes.
painful. You have turned your pain into purpose, and it's beautiful to see. Thank you. What does living a meaningful life mean to you?
For me, a meaningful life means to wake up every day
Mhm.
and do something where you're putting your heart in, when you have a purpose, and you're not only doing something just for the benefit of the money. um,
Mhm.
because I could go and do something and make all this money, but if I'm not fulfilled and I'm not really touching or impacting someone's life,
Mhm.
it has to go hand in hand with having purpose,
Yeah.
and knowing that I'm doing something with an amazing cause, that I'm going to impact someone's life for a good reason, like what I'm doing right now. As I'm doing other things in my life as an interpreter and translator, most
Mhm.
definitely that's a great example, that I'm able to touch their lives and help them uh, when they're ill, when something's happening with them, but at the same time, through my story of letting them know that I never gave up.
Yeah.
Even though there were so many obstacles, someone else in my shoes would have probably said, I'm done.
Mhm.
But living with a meaning in life means so much uh, to me.
Mhm.
And I hope that, you also do the same as you're listening to my message.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So where do you interpret? Is it at a hospital or who do you
Yes,
interpret to?
I'm actually a certified interpreter in the medical field. So they call me, and not only at one hospital, but if they call me around the Dallas Forward
Mhm.
hospitals, I'm always on standby. So if they need me, I'm
Mhm.
able to go and help. And I decide where and when I'm available. So yes.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. So you're bilingual.
Yes,
Do you speak English and Spanish or do you speak other
yes.
languages?
Yes, I speak English and Spanish, and I
Okay.
most definitely also figured out, because Spanish is a very romantic language. I most definitely understand a lot of Italian,
Yes.
because it's tied into the same
Yeah.
romantic strand of languages. So
Yeah.
I love that. That's actually something that I love and enjoy.
And Portuguese too, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Portuguese. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that's really
yes.
cool. Yeah. What advice would you give to anyone who is seeking purpose or direction in life?
Well, what I could advise them, and that's what happened to me after everything was taken away, and how I ended up finding my own purpose and direction, was
Mhm.
coming to the Lord. That's how I found, and that's what I do every day, even now that everything was taken, but then everything has been fulfilled.
Yeah.
Every day I sit down, and I do take my coffee, by the way. I do. I take just one little glass of coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, and I sit down and I just sit and I enjoy my coffee and I talk to him. I talk to him just like I talk to my dad. I don't have my mother anymore, as you know.
Mhm.
My dad is extremely ill right now, but I talk to my daddy God, and I talk to him and I say, Daddy God, Please allow me to fulfill the purpose that you have assigned for me on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Please, Daddy God, I'm your daughter,
Yeah,
and you are his daughter too, by the way.
I am. Yeah.
Listen, allow me to fulfill my purpose
Mm-hmm.
because I know that I was born with a purpose to fulfill.
Yeah.
Allow me, give me that direction
Mm-hmm.
because I want you to put it in my heart so I could know what you had designed me for. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I do. And I think that he could do that for you as well.
Yes, he has been doing it, but it has caused me to go outside of my human comfort zone. Yeah, yeah. Because normally I'm shy and introvert. You'll never caught me in front of a camera like this, but somehow, some way, it's happening. So I'm grateful for every experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So how has writing been therapeutic for you? When you write, what do you feel?
It's been definitely very therapeutical because I've been able to release
Mm,
all those hidden
mhm,
um, painful experiences that I had to go through.
mhm, mhm,
And I actually had to, when I was working on this book, I tried not to go into the feelings. I tried to just go very superficial. But the deeper I went, it truly helped me to understand that I needed to go there in
mhm,
order for me to heal. And maybe there was areas that I didn't even know, which I figured out that there were a lot of those areas. And
mhm,
there was weekends that I would just start crying because my grandparents did a lot of harm to us and I needed to let go.
mhm.
And I didn't even know that. So
Yes.
most definitely, as you write, and I
Yeah.
think in my case, uh, the case was that it was real. It was a true connection with true experiences that happened to us,
Mhm,
that happened to my family and happened to my mother and myself,
mhm.
allowed me to heal of things that I didn't even know of. So most definitely, it became a true healing process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. You know, my logo on the podcast is Healing Together. And
Wow.
that one was a no-brainer because I often we think we can heal by ourselves and really we can't. We can on a personal level and to an extent, but I believe we need each other. So I love your healing journey as well. What else do you do to heal like for your pastime? What do you do?
You know, I think that in our culture and my culture personally, and
Mhm,
it's a very common thing that we enjoy doing. I enjoy listening to music. I love music, and I think that it's a very good, great way to just listen to music, to meditate,
mhm,
um, to disconnect, and just to relax. And I think it's a very good way. Um,
mhm,
I enjoy also, and I think that there's not a lot of people that do that anymore right now, to do knitting. But now there's a new way to do knitting with a little wooden, and it's like a Hispanic way, a little wooden, a piece of wood that has all these little. I would have to show it to you. I was not expecting, but it's a way of a different new way of
okay.
knitting.
Oh,
So even cooking, baking, it's a very great way, to
mhm,
let yourself relax. Uh,
mhm, mhm.
so
Yeah, yeah, I love that. What role would you say self-reflection play in healing and growth?
what was it?
What role that self-reflection and healing plays in I'm trying to I'm having a day.
Oh, it's okay.
What role does self-reflection play in healing and growth?
I think it plays a huge role because we need to definitely heal. Um, and if we don't have that, we will never be able to. It will allow us to pull out everything that's hidden
Mhm,
in order, to
mhm,
completely heal.
Yeah.
So we need that.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else we didn't cover that you would like to touch on?
Well, I don't think so. I would definitely would love to read a little something that I think
Oh,
that is very important of my book on
yes.
page 195.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's very important as you have these people here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. It says, we must encourage every soul traveling this path we call life, because as we often see, it can be a brutal journey. I believe that no one greater exists. There is no one more powerful and none more able and willing to help us than God. I have found him to be faithful and true. He is present in the middle of life's deepest storms and always near the brokenhearted. He is the only one who can mend a broken heart. He will mend your broken heart too.
Mm. Oh, that's so beautiful. Beautiful and true.
Yes. And that's
Absolutely.
how I find him.
Yes.
I don't preach and preach much about him, but that's how I find it in a very loving, kind, and truthful way that he is just so real and he's there. We see this world and we see birds and we see the nature and we see everything that's around us. It's a way of letting us know that he is there and that he loves us.
Yeah.
And we would not be here today if it wasn't because of him. And this world is a great representation that there is someone out there that's in charge and that loves us all. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I love that. I have two questions for you as we wrap up. The first one is, what is the meaning of life for you?
Oh, what is the meaning of life for me? Well, I think that we're passing life here, and I think that it's up to us to leave a legacy. And my book is called A Legacy of Love. For
Yeah.
me, it's very important and powerful to leave, in my case, my mother's legacy.
Mhm.
And my desire is to make sure that my children leave that same legacy that I will leave to them, my book, and all that my mother taught me. That's what I want to leave, that same legacy that my mother taught me, to love each other, to make sure that I care about my neighbor, and for my children to learn everything that my mom taught me for other generations to come, and beyond. And if someone here doesn't have a legacy or they don't know the value of life, that they could adopt it with my book called A Legacy of Love, which is available on Amazon and also my website, www.analeevinyard, ANALEEVINYARD.com. It's also available there on my website. And know that there is so much value in life.
Mhm.
And I would love for them to know more about what life means to me, because there's so much to share. And yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. My last question is, where can my listeners find you?
Well, they could find me definitely there on my website, and definitely I have my Instagram that's author Analee, and I carry also my maiden last name because I'm Hispanic, which I'm very proud of. So it's author Analee Viscara. It's also with a
Mhm.
Vizcara,
Mhm.
Vineyard, Vinyard.
Mhm.
And Facebook, it's the same Facebook author, and then it's Analee Viscara Vineyard as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Annalie, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your heart with us. Keep up the amazing job that you're doing. Keep inspiring and uplifting spirits. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you
You,
for having me here.
you,
And I also, I know that God has something amazing for you also in store.
yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.